Today we have for a project for a client resurfacing the bottom of his cast iron skillet. The client recently got a glass induction top stove and they wanted to sit more flat on the surface, so they need the ridge along the edge removed. The size of this skillet is small. It's only about 8 inches for the outside diameter. And measuring the height of that ridge here with a depth micrometer, it's only about 50 thousandths deep. So I'm going to use the metal lathe to cut the ridge off today instead of the mill, because it'll give a better surface finish. To rough out most of the metal off of the ridge, I'll use an indexable lathe bar here. And then for the finish pass along the entire surface, I'll use this V&G insert boring bar to surface all of it because of clearance issues on my lathe and the amount of travel on the x-axis. This is the metal lathe that I will be using today. It's a Birmingham 1440 model. I took the gap out of the bed for some extra swing room for the handle to clear the bed. I opened up the 8-inch chuck most of the way and reverse the jaws. So I will place the skillet in between the jaws. And tighten it just enough so it doesn't deform the rest of the skillet. And check clearance once again. And it clears without any safety issues. The next step will be making sure that it is sitting flat in here and taking an even depth of cut so that there's not going to be thin areas of the cast iron skillet floor. I have a dial indicator here on the face of the skillet, and as I rotate it, I'm seeing how much there's a variation in height. And it does not seem to be that bad. In some places it's 10,000, but that could be just a bump since the tip I'm using is quite small on the indicator. I think that it's good enough to start cutting. I have the lathe set to a low speed of about 140 RPM. Because the handle is unbalanced, I don't want it to shake that much. Here is how it looks after I took off that ridge for most of it. I'm going to do a little bit more roughing pass, then come in with the finishing tool. Here I am with the finishing tool coming in for the finishing pass. It appears that the depth of cut I took was not enough to get all of the scale off of it. So there's a little bit more that needs to be cut to have all of it have the same finish. I'll come in for another cut and hopefully it'll be the proper depth to finish. It appears that I got the final depth set, so it's going to cut off the proper amount by now. I finished the skillet. Here's what it looks like after it's been cut. There's some remaining areas here on the edge, but I decided to not cut that out because then the letters and the numbers on it would have also been cut out. So I decided that it served the customer's purpose and it would still have all of the markings on it if I left it at this depth. So it should be done now. I'll test to see how flat it is using a parallel and a light on the other side, and then I'll see how much light shines through. And it looks pretty good. There is a bump there in the middle that needs to be cut out. To check where the high spots are, I'm going to use a technique similar to metal scraping. With a marker, I'm going to mark the surface. Let that dry. Now we are here at the granite surface plate. I'm wiping down the surface with a paper towel to clean any particles that might be on the surface. The skillet has been marked with a marker. Now I'm gonna lightly rub it over the surface. I'm trying to use a figure 8 configuration, figure 8 movement. Now, when I pick it up, you can see the marks. After rubbing the cast iron skillet on the surface plate, the high areas have rubbed away all the ink. So here is the divot in the middle that I'm concerned about. And on the edges, you see 3 marks. Those are the areas caused by the 3-jaw chuck. So the unequal gripping force distorted it. Then once it was released, it bounded back, leaving 3 high areas right here, caused by the spacing of the chuck jaws. For this application, I'm not trying to get to 10th level flatness, so not as concerned, but I am concerned about the bump in the middle that's causing it to not sit flat. To remove the bump, I have chosen to use a simple Dremel tool. Now it clears and I don't see any more bump.